Hey, Stacey David here with the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. Now, what is this? Well, it's a podcast that covers everything automotive, everything mechanical, everything that's just cool about the automotive lifestyle. And since that's just about everything, you're going to love it. Let's get rolling. All right, for today's podcast, we got one of my friends from the industry. You know, I get a lot of people on here, but you're going to love Jefferson. This is Jefferson Bryant, and he's from Oklahoma, but that's not his big thing. Jefferson was in the magazine world for years, decades, wrote magazines. He's got a couple of new books out about LS engine interchange parts and stuff. So if you're into cars, if you're into LSs, if you're into anything like this, you're going to love this podcast. You're going to love meeting Jefferson. So Jefferson, welcome.
Good to be here. Love the shop. It's awesome.
Good to have you on, man.
This is amazing.
So does this remind you of some of the shops that you've been around, or?
Oh, absolutely. This place is absolutely incredible.
Well, thank you, man.
All the tools, all the equipment. I mean, it feels like home, to be honest. It's, you know, you can just jump right in and do anything.
Yeah,
here.
don't linger too long. I may put you to work.
I will do it.
Okay, so your background, I mean, you've been a car guy forever. How did you first get into it? Did you get into it like reading books or magazines or building model cars or die-cast, or was your parents into cars? How'd you get started?
Well, it goes back all the way to the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first time I fell in love with a car.
Okay.
I was about 5 years old.
All right.
And we were visiting some friends of my parents in Colorado, and they had older children.
Yeah.
And their oldest drives up in a 76 Trans Am.
Oh, man.
Midnight blue. It rumbled down the street, and it pulled up, and I was just absolutely struck by it.
Yeah.
And from that moment, I've been a gearhead. You know, my grandfather, my dad's dad, he had a service station in Oklahoma in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I learned how to turn wrenches from my dad working on our cars.
Okay.
You know, he wasn't a gearhead.
Sure.
You know, he didn't,
he wasn't building anything, just maintenance and taking care of cars.
He wasn't building hot rods, but we worked together. And so, I cut my teeth on an 87 Chevy Suburban, and which I still have. Which are actually,
well, wow.
Yeah, so cars got over 1 million miles on the chassis. 3 motors, 2 transmissions, and 3 rear ends. Yeah. And it's getting ready to get a LT. We're dropping an L86 6.2 liter and an 8-speed in it. So it's gonna be pretty slick.
So when you look at cars, I mean, do you like everything, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, cars, trucks, motorcycles, the whole thing? Or are there things that you're more specific about? Are you more of a truck guy, or are you more of a car guy?
I'm a Buick guy.
Really?
I'm a huge Buick guy.
Okay. Okay. I love that. What Buicks? Because I love the nailheads.
Yes. So I had a 63 LeSabre wagon.
Okay.
That had a 400 nailhead in it.
Yeah.
And I pulled it out because I hated doing it, but I bought the car for a reason. Yeah. And the transmission was bad, and then I ended up fixing the transmission inadvertently. Yeah. And I was like, I hate to do this, but I have to. So I pulled the motor out, and I put a Buick 350 in it that I pulled from a 71 Electra. Yeah. And I put a twin turbo kit on it. Yeah. And it was... I actually did a story on it in Hot Rod a long time ago, and I loved that car. We called it Sweet Buttered Toast. Okay. It was tinted yellow primer, looked like a slab of butter. And then we did airbrush wood grain on the side, and I was like, that looks like toast. That's buttered toast. This is awesome.
That's hilarious.
And it made 100 extra horsepower, so not a lot. But it made 600 pound-feet of torque.
Oh, my gosh.
It was all in at 1,500 RPM. Yeah. So you hit the pedal at a stoplight, and about halfway through the intersection, tires just start rolling. It was so much fun. But my dream car, I have 2 dream cars.
Okay.
So the dream car that I'm going to talk about is my 1971 Buick GS convertible.
Okay.
So as a kid, driving around with my parents, going all the places, because we road tripped all over the country. And I always would sit in the back seat and just daydream about when I was going to college.
Yeah.
And I had this vision in my head of me driving this blue car, this muscle car, and I didn't really know what it was. You know, I'm 10 years old.
It had kind of that Chevelle look to it.
Yes, it's exactly right. And I was originally kind of thinking maybe it was a GTO.
Yeah.
And then when I'm in college, I see there's this used car lot near where my sister and I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this blue Buick. And I was like, guys.
Was it a Grand Sport?
Yeah.
It's
a real Grand Sport.
Yeah.
Convertible. 1971, has the N25 bumper with the through exhaust, through bumper exhaust.
Yeah.
And I spent about 4 years working on these guys because they didn't want to sell it.
Yeah.
And I had a 65 Chevy truck at the time, which I had done everything to. It was slammed 6.8, and I
did all the stuff to it. Yeah.
I put a small block in it, all that stuff. And we were moving, and a friend of mine was following me, and I'm watching him in my rear view because a car was turning in front of me, so I was stopped, and he's just chatting away with his friend. Slams right into the back of me.
Oh,
Bed
man.
breaks loose. Rolls the side of the cab around the passenger side door.
Yeah.
Drive shaft gets pushed into the motor, in the transmission, and just blows it all up.
Ruined it all. Yeah.
Ruins it. And so I get paid by the insurance company, and I go over go over to that shop, and I said, "Hey guys, I have $4,000.
Yeah.
Will you sell it to me?" And they looked at me, and they said, "You have been trying to buy this car forever. Deal." So I bought a 71 Buick GS convertible for $4,000 in 1999.
Oh my gosh.
Same week I started dating my wife.
Yeah.
And
that was a good week.
It was a very, very good
And you
week.
still have that car?
I still have that car. I brought my kids home from the hospital in that car.
Is it rusty? I mean, what kind of shape is it in?
I'll show you some pictures. So I built my entire career on this car.
Okay.
The early days of my career, I built. So I come from the car audio world, and this was my car audio competition car.
Okay.
At one point, it was the
So
loudest.
you got all that good kicker stuff on it?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. At one point, it was the world's loudest true convertible. It had 154.7 dB.
I've seen this car. If you've had it out at shows and stuff back in the day, I'm sure I've seen it.
It's been
because
it's been about everywhere. It's been about everywhere, and I found out things along the way. I've built the car like 7 times, and I found out at one point I had pulled the seats out, and I was putting some later model seats in it because I wanted something a little more. I don't know why. I really don't. Thinking about it now,
you do some crazy stuff. That's cool.
And I'm talking with some guys on a chat group, an email chat group that was for Buicks, and they're like, "You have what?" And because I was going to sell the wheel, I was going to sell them.
Yeah,
which was really stupid.
Yeah,
and they go, "Hold on, you have a 71 GS with bucket seats."
Yeah,
and I said, "Yeah," and they go, "Oh, okay. When did you put those seats in?" I was like, "I didn't. They're original."
Factory.
They're like, "Those are not factory seats." I said, "Well, they are."
Yeah.
And everybody's arguing with me. And they said, "Dude, they did not make convertibles in 71 with bucket seats. They were all benches. They had to be special ordered that way, and they only made 45 that way."
Yeah, and you got one.
And I got one. And they said, "Go out and look at the trim tag. And if it says SCO, then it's real." I went out and take a picture of it, and they're like, "Do not sell those seats. Put them back in right now because you have one of 45. And I kept them. I've redone them. So they're much more comfortable now.
That's awesome, though. I'm glad they stopped you from doing it because you don't know.
Yes.
You know, it's like.
It's that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff that has, led me into my career. Because this is around 2001, 2002. I wasn't writing at the time.
I tell you what, that is really good advice, though, because, and we try to get this across all the time, because this industry is always changing and values go back and forth. And I'm always telling people, it's your car, do with it as you want, but you also have to be wise to what's going on around you. If you have an original Hemi car and you don't want a Hemi in it and you take the Hemi out, that's crazy. But only if you know that the Hemis are valuable, and if a person starts cutting up a car without knowing about it, that's crazy. I've got this little 240Z sitting here, and I'm getting ready to cover that on the show for the same reason, because you get into that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden you realize this is really valuable with all those pieces that you were about to take off. And so then it becomes, okay, if your goal is to modify the car, you probably want to sell it to a collector and get another one that is rusty or that you can start cutting up. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad you've got that car. Is it got a stick in it?
It doesn't.
It's an automatic.
It was originally an automatic, and yes, it's rare, but that didn't stop me from making it mine. However,
I'm glad.
Everything that I've done to it,
you got to do
for the most part, is all reversible. There's a couple things that aren't, but they had to be done. So currently, it has a LT1 6.2 liter Gen 5 motor in it with a TCI 4L60 Super Street Fighter. Yeah. And a Pro Charger. Yeah. And it's about 750-ish horse. And it's way overkill, way too much. We're getting ready to put a 9-inch in it. I'm still running the built. I've got a built 8.5-inch 10-bolt, which is also really cool because Buick and a handful of Oldsmobiles had 8.5-inch 10-bolt with bolt-in axles instead of C-clips, and they're incredibly rare. And mine's in really good shape. It's got a true track in it, so it does everything I want, but it can't handle 750 horse. Yeah. So about 500 is about its max. Yeah. You need to call Matt over there at American Powertrain and put a 6-speed in that thing. I can't believe you haven't done that. I have considered it so many times. Consider it. I'm sitting here. I'm dragging you to the dark side here. It's got that beautiful horseshoe shifter in it, and I love it so much the way it is. Yeah. And I have so many other sticks, 6-speed cars. We just did a TKX in a 96 Lexus SC300. Okay. So basically the upscale Supra, basically. And it's actually the first one that's been done on that platform. We've got the 2JZ in there, and my son built it, my youngest son, Benjamin, and he works with me in the shop. That's awesome that he's into cars. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of the greatest things that could ever happen is, now, did he just kind of follow in your footsteps? Did he grow up around the cars? Oh yeah, he grew up in the shop. He grew up in the shop, and he would come in the shop and be barefoot. Yeah. And my employees would say, "Kid, put some shoes on." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's standing on like shavings and grinding, and he's 10 years old, running the bandsaw and all this stuff. And I tell him, like, "Dude, you're gonna hurt." And he's like, "Dad, it makes my feet tough." Well, it will do that, yeah. He'll step on a few of those hot cherries off of a grinder or a welder. Although I have to say, I'm also the guy that welds and plasma cuts wearing flip-flops. So he comes by it naturally. Yes, he comes by it naturally. It's for me, it's kind of, I grew up reading, Gray Baskerville, and he's the flip-flop guy. Yeah. For me. And I think where everybody got that. Yes. Yeah. So it just always kind of stuck. One of the first true freedoms you experience as a kid is that first bicycle. Man, it becomes your transportation to the world, or at least the local neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, man, we all had bikes. And we'd stick playing cards in the spokes, and we'd suck on black licorice, make it look like we were big biker dudes. And it was magic.
But a bike wasn't just about transportation. No, it became an extension of your personality. And there were all kinds of bikes out there. There were 10 speeds, there were mountain bikes, there were Stingrays, there were BMX bikes, and they all had their strengths and weaknesses. And that's where the idea for the story of the purple bicycle came from. Because just like a bike might wish it had the talents or skills of another bike, so do we sometimes overlook our God-given talents and wish we had somebody else's talents, skills, because they seem to be better than ours. It's a simple lesson, but something we all need to be reminded of from time to time. You know, let's talk about your magazine background. How did you get into the magazines? How did you get into journalism?
That is a really interesting story. So my dad owned a radio station when I was a kid, so I was always around broadcasting. Okay. And my dad was a photographer, and I looked up to that sort of thing. And so I started doing some photography, and my dad, owning the radio station, did storm chasing. So we would go out and chase tornadoes. And
in Oklahoma, yes, yeah, you found them pretty easy.
Very, very easily. Yeah. And I was in 9th grade, and we went out chasing a storm, and it was a 1/4 mile wide tornado. It was huge. And I was taking pictures, and I took them out to the local newspaper. And I didn't get them published, but they sent a really nice letter with some tips and things like that. And a couple years later, you know, I sent in some pictures to Four Wheel and Off-Road magazine because I was stuck. It was my 64 Chevy truck, and I had tried to cross a ravine, and it was front bumper, back bumper on the ground, and nothing in the middle. And it was a great picture. So growing up, reading cartoons magazines and Hot Rod and Carcraft, you know, it was just amazing. And I thought those guys were my heroes. They were so cool. Yeah. And I never really thought I would have an opportunity to do that. And then in my car audio days, I was a product designer for Rockford Fosgate. And I just wanted to, kind of try to build a name for myself. I was young. Yeah. No, that's wise, though. And so I started talking to an industry magazine, and I said, hey, because I was given an award by them the previous year, and I was like, hey, I can write a couple articles and do some stuff on my GS. And they said, sure, send them in. So I did 4 articles in 2003 and 4. And I get a call from an editor of Muscle Car Enthusiast magazine, Steve Statham. And he says, hey, I heard about this article you did on casting emblems, and I would love to have one of those for my magazine, and I'll pay you this much. And I was just like,
and there it was.
Whoa. Yeah. You're going to pay me to do the thing that I love the most in the world? Yeah. And so within a year and a half, I had so much writing work that I didn't have time for my day job. Yeah. And I ended up leaving the corporate world, working for Rockford Fosgate, and I've been a free-time journalist ever since. Yeah. So you've seen a lot of changes now. Unfortunately, the journalist world is all gone online, but there's still stories that need to be written. Absolutely. So you're still doing a lot? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I write, on average, I probably write 10, 15 stories a month. Yeah. And I'll do anywhere from, 5 to 20 videos on average. I do a lot of video content for manufacturers. So I do that stuff for like American Powertrain, Summit Racing, Speedway. I produce a lot of content for Hemmings as well. Yeah, good. And we just did last year, eBay came to me and they asked me to do 64 tech videos, kind of generic stuff. Yeah. And we've all seen those. And half the time you come out with more questions than you had going in. And I'm like, look, I'm going to take this from the perspective that I do every article, every magazine, every video that I do. It's from the first-timer's perspective. Yeah, because that's how it needs to be. No one was born with information. No one knew how to do anything when they were born. So for anybody to look down their nose at somebody wanting to learn how to change their oil or how to change a headlight, it seems silly to me. And I find that in this industry, there's a disconnect.
Absolutely.
Especially on when you get to the aftermarket hot rod side of things.
Yeah.
You know, that's the pinnacle. That's the top of the mountain for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes people might feel silly writing an article on how to change windshield wipers.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I got approached by the local news people here, and they wanted me to do a thing with the lady on how to take care of your car, and it was that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? But I tell you what, you hit on a really good point there. This industry has changed over the 20, 30 years I've been doing this stuff. When I first started doing the TV shows and everything, you had a certain percentage that was small, maybe 10, 15% that were pros. Then you had a massive chunk there in the middle that were intermediate. And then you had a small percentage, 10, 15% that were beginners. And so there was a lot that people knew that you didn't have to go into. The basics, like how to pack wheel bearings and how to change oil and oil viscosity and these kind of things. That has completely changed because a lot of guys now are not growing up with father figures.
Exactly right.
So they don't have a basics. They want to learn it, but they're coming in completely cold, and they're in their 20s and 30s. So you can't talk down to people like that.
Yeah,
you have to go, and the group of people that are pros has gotten a little bigger, but that whole intermediate has gone way small, and it's gone down into the beginner. So you got to bring those guys in, because if you offend them, they'll go elsewhere.
Yeah.
They'll get into, paintball stuff or whatever. And they really want to mess with cars, but not if some jerk is going to give them a hard time because they brought their car in at a show and it wasn't up to par to all the experts. And I see that. Right. I know you see that.
Oh, absolutely. I was in a meeting a year ago, and I had just written a story on how to change windshield wipers. So it was fresh in my head, and I mentioned that to him. And he's in the industry. Yeah. He's a marketing guy in the industry, and he's mid-30s. And I'm talking, and he just kind of raises his hand in the middle of our meeting, and he goes, "That's me." He goes, "I had to change my windshield wipers for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I opened the package, and there's all this stuff, and I have no idea how to do it." And he's like, I had to have the guy at
AutoZone or whatever?
At AutoZone come out and do it for me. And he goes, I was so embarrassed about it. I was like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know. And we all have to learn somehow.
Oh, yeah.
I learned by my dad, and everything that I didn't learn from my dad, I learned by breaking stuff. It's when you're working on a car and something doesn't work and you have a failure, you can't look at it like it's a failure.
No, you always
learn how
something.
not to do something.
Yeah. It's only a failure if you don't learn from it.
That's exactly right.
Now you're just wasting time.
That's exactly right.
All right, that's our show for today, which means you need to get out there and start working on something. Spend some time turning wrenches. You might be surprised how much you like it. Make sure you check out our website, staceydavid.com, because we've got all kinds of new products and some other great stuff that you're just going to love. Also, make sure to check out our social media. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all at Official Stacey David. Our social media is where you're going to find all of the bonus content, the giveaways, the contests, the trivia. We even have extra viewer projects that focus on what you are working on. Also, the new season of Gears will be on MAV TV, and YouTube will be the place that you can view all of your favorite Gears episodes, as well as the full project builds that follow the project from beginning to end. Make sure to check out our new Gears coffee cars. This is a unique blend of coffee and cool stickers to collect that will appeal to anyone. But the most important thing is get out there and turn some wrenches yourself. Get a project, start working on it, and if you don't have tools, check out Cornwell. They can help you out there. All right, that's all the announcements. We're all up to date. We'll see you next time.